tapasaha by dint of austerities, shrutasya by dint of study of the Vedas, va or svistasya sacrifice, suktasya spiritual education, cha and buddhi culture of knowledge, dattayoho charity, abhichutaha infallible, arthaha interest, kabibhihi by the recognized learned person, nirupitaha concluded, yat what, uttama shloka the Lord who is described by choice poetry, guna anuvarnanam description of the transcendental qualities of. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, C. Vedanta, Dr. Translation. Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerities, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. Translation with repetition. Learned circles have positively concluded
Learned circles have positively concluded
that the infallible purpose of the advancement
that the infallible purpose of the advancement
of knowledge, namely austerities, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. Purport by Srila Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada.
Human intellect is developed for advancement of learning in art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, economics, politics, etc. By culture of such knowledge, the human society can attain perfection of life. This perfection of life culminates in the realization of the Supreme Being, Vishnu. The Shruti therefore directs that those who are actually advanced in learning should aspire for the service of Lord Vishnu. Unfortunately, persons who are enamored by the external beauty of Vishnu Maya do not understand that culmination of perfection or self-realization depends on Vishnu. Vishnu Maya means sense enjoyment, which is transient and miserable. Those who are entrapped by Vishnu Maya utilize advancement of knowledge for sense enjoyment. Sri Narada Muni has explained that all paraphernalia of the cosmic universe is but an emanation from the Lord out of his different energies, because the Lord has set in motion by his inconceivable energy the actions and reactions of the created manifestation. They have come to be out of his energy, they rest on his energy, and after annihilation they merge into it. Nothing is therefore different. But at the same time, the Lord is always different from them. When advancement of knowledge is applied in the service of the Lord, the whole process becomes absolute. The personality of Godhead and his transcendental name, fame, glory, etc. are all non-different from him. Therefore, all the sages and devotees of the Lord have recommended that the subject matter of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. Art, literature, poetry, painting, etc. may be used in glorifying the Lord. The fiction writers, poets, and celebrated literatures are generally engaged in writing of sensuous subjects. But if they turn towards the service of the Lord, they can describe the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Valmiki was a great poet, and similarly Vyasadeva is a great writer, and both of them have absolutely engaged themselves in delineating the transcendental activities of the Lord, and by doing so have become immortal. Similarly, science and philosophy also have to be applied in the service of the Lord. There is no use presenting dry, speculative theories for sense gratification. Philosophy and science should be engaged to establish the glory of the Lord. Advanced people are eager to understand the absolute truth through the medium of science, and therefore a great scientist endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. Similarly, philosophical speculations should be utilized to establish the supreme truth as sentient and all-powerful. Similarly, all other branches of knowledge should always be engaged in the service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also, the same is affirmed. All knowledge not engaged in the service of the Lord is but nescience. Real utilization of advanced knowledge is to establish the glories of the Lord, and that is the real import. Scientific knowledge engaged in the service of the Lord and all similar activities are all factually Hari Kirtan or glorification of the Lord. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So actually this purport is such wonderful. I usually say thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Sometimes the wonder in the purport is not known, but sometimes they are self-evident. And if you read this purport, this is so brilliantly written and so succinctly put by Prabhupada to what is the real knowledge and what should it be aimed at. The only wish probably I can have is if the intellectuals of this world who are so busy in their intellectual pursuits, be it poetry, be it science, be it philosophy, whatever, read this purport and understand what it is. Because it is such wonderful purport. Before we deep dive into today's verse and understand various aspects what Prabhupada is explaining, I just want you to remember this one word called rebel. Right? Rebel is a word we used in various contexts. Somebody who doesn't want to follow certain rules and regulations. Like when the Britishers were ruling, can give this example, the Indians wanted to be independent and they were rebellious. Or we see sometimes our own children, not always, sometimes, not all of them, maybe some of them, become rebellious. They just don't want to listen to the parents. And just keep this word rebel and this picture in mind. We will revert to this as we proceed. Let's understand the verse. Such a beautiful verse. Actually, if we spend time in understanding this verse, if we spend time in memorizing this verse, it's a great achievement. Actually, these are not some ordinary things. These are transcendental discussion which is happening between two transcendental personalities which are by no sense of our imagination are ordinary in any stretch of imagination. They are extraordinary. Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. And this instruction is Narada, this chapter itself is Narada Muni's instruction to Vyasadeva. And here he is telling idam hi pumsas tapasah shrutasya va svishtasya suktasya cha buddhi dattayoho avichyuta artha vibhir niroku yad uttama shloka gunanu. Idam hi pumsaha. So if there are certain words which are not exactly present in the translation, but they are very important, like the word he and pumsaha. So this is meant for everyone. This is not some one class of people who are renounced, who have probably dedicated their lives, or who are, not following the so-called material life, ways of material life, may be applicable for them. Not really. Idam hi pumsas. Pumsas actually all-encompassing for everyone. Idam, this, he, certainly, this is certainly the most important thing. Idam hi pumsa shrutasya va svistasya suktasya cha buddhidattayo. The word used here there is one word which is used, yad uttama shlok gunanuvarnanam. So yad refers to that. So basically, we will start with that word yad, which means yad uttama shloka gunanuvarnanam. There is something that we all should, idam hi pumshas, without exception, all of us, we should aspire, or that is the goal that is set by Narada Muni. We should aspire to reach there. Where we should reach there? Uttama shloka gunanavarnana. One word, one adjective of the Lord, or the Lord is also known as Uttama shloka, or who's glorified with choicest poetry, guna anuvarnanam. And we should describe the transcendental descriptions. It should culminate in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord. Guna anuvarnanam. Varnanam is description, guna is qualities, transcendental qualities of the Lord. So what they are saying is, who is telling this? Abhichyuta artha kabibhir nirupito. So kabibhir, the learned circles, kabibhir is, they are exalted personalities. They have seen the truth. They are self-realized people. Nirupito, they are concluding. Abhichyuta artha kabibhir nirupito. Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose, abhichyuta artha, achyuta, we know the word, which is used for Krishna, means infallible. Artha means the goal or purpose. So abhichyuta artha, the infallible purpose of what? Of advancement of knowledge. Idam hi pumsas tapasah shrutasya va svistasya suktasya cha buddhi dattayo. Buddhi dattayo. So this buddhi, advancement of knowledge, which includes, what is the exactly knowledge? It could be austerities. Austerities is tapasaha, first word, the third word, idam hi pumsas tapasah, fourth one. Tapasa is austerity. Shrutasya. Shrutasya is the hint of the study of the Vedas. Svistasya. Svistasya is sacrifice. Suktasya, spiritual education. Dattayoho, charity. So all this, basically the learned circles are concluding that abhichyuta artha, the infallible purpose of advancement of knowledge, which includes all of this, whether it is austerity, whether it is study of the Vedas, whether it is sacrifice, whether it is chanting of hymns and charity, should culminate, yad, culminate in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord who is defined in choice. Uttama shloka gunanavarna. Beautiful verse. And these are not, Narada Muni is not telling this is my personal opinion. He's telling this is the learned circles positively have concluded. Kabibhir nirupito. And how? The infallible purpose. It's abhichyuta artha. It is not like for you it is applicable, for me it is not. No, it is infallible purpose. Abhichyuta artha of the advancement of knowledge, which includes all this tapasaha, shrutasya, svistasya, suktasya, buddhidattayoho. All this advancement of knowledge should culminate in glorifying in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord who is defined in choice poetry. Uttama shloka gunanuvarnam. If you carefully see in this verse, there are three kinds of shas which are used. Idam hi pumsas tapasaha shrutasya. The word shrutasya, S has a hyphen. That is the one which comes from our palate, top of the palate. Shrutasya. And this sa is the normal sa, which starts with our teeth. Shrutasya va. Then there is Twistasya. This is ta, not ta, because there is a dot in below the T. And sa has a dot also. That is the saw with a line inside. Swistasya. So Sanskrit has, in the same one verse, where in English just one letter S, Sanskrit has 3 alphabets and they come from different places as pronunciation. Let's read the translation one more. I see some echo from somewhere. If you don't mind, can you go on mute? I don't know where is it coming from. Unless you are speaking, you can go on mute. Thank you. Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerities, study of the Vedas, still it is coming, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, and charity culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. Hare Krishna. Okay, better. So this translation, if we see a little more closely and understand what Narada Muni is telling, such a beautiful translation. So to memorize, actually this thing should go, we should absorb, it should go, we should assimilate, it should seep in, it should go deep within what exactly this verse is. If you see little closely, there is a word which is used, I was telling that culminates. Culmination is a step, or it's a stage which comes after there are a series of things which are there. Like the culmination of Wimbledon happens with the final. There are qualifiers, there are first round, second round, quarterfinal, semi-final, and then it culminates with the final. Or let's say there is a festival, Brahmotsava festival. It culminates with the sprinkling of Tepotsava and the sprinkling of water. It's the final day. It culminates in that. So here Narada Muni is telling that it should culminate. Something should culminate. What is that something which should culminate? We will see. But it should culminate in what? The question is, if something has to culminate, what is it culminating in? And he says it should culminate in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord. Guna anuvarnanam. And this guna, these qualities of the Lord are transcendental. It should culminate in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord. Who is that Lord? The Lord who's Uttama Shloka, who's defined in choice poetry. So we have understood the second part of the verse where it says that something should culminate. This is the final thing. Culminate in what? Transcendental descriptions of the Lord. Who is that Lord? The Lord who's defined in choice poetry. Let's see what else is there. So he's telling this should culminate in transcendental description of the Lord. What is that? Purpose of advancement of knowledge. Avichyuta arthaha. Purpose of advancement of knowledge should culminate in transcendental descriptions of the Lord. Okay. And this purpose is infallible. Avichyuta. This is not some random purpose. I can give a purpose that, the purpose of my education is to get a job, a nice, good paying, lucrative job. But that's not the real culmination. That may be a small temporary goal. Or maybe my purpose of study is to get admission to a good university. Okay, that's an intermediate stage. So here, Narada Muni is telling purpose of advancement of knowledge should culminate. And this purpose is the infallible purpose. This is for idam hi pumsas. This is for all, certainly for all people. And this is the real goal of advancement of knowledge. It should culminate in this. And who is telling this? Narada Muni, it's not his personal opinion. He is telling learned circles have positively concluded this. Very interesting. Kabibhir nirupitoho. Kabibhir nirupitaha. Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of advancement of knowledge, avichyuta arthaha, culminates This is the final thing in transcendental descriptions of the Lord defined in choice poetry, the Lord who's defined in choice poetry. And as I said, there are purports which are self-evident that they're just so wonderful, so wonderful. Let's see what the purport is. Before we go there, I'm just quickly going through the verse that we discussed last time. Some of you might have remembered, some of you would have not. But without even looking at the verse, your goodness has perfect vision. This is referring to Vedavyas, Amoghatrak. Your goodness is perfect vision. You yourself can know the super soul personality of Godhead because you are present as the plenary portion of the Lord. We say Bhagavan Vedavyas because he is a plenary portion of the Lord. So you can know the super soul personality of Godhead. Although you are birthless, Ajata, Ajam, you have appeared on this earth for the well-being of all people, Shivaya. And then conclusion of the last verse, please, it's a request, please, therefore, hence, because you are an incarnation of the Lord, you have Amoghadak, you have perfect vision. And although Ajata, Ajam, you have taken birth, you have appeared for the well-being, for Shivaya, for all people, then please, therefore, describe the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, more vividly. Mahanubhava abhyudayo adhiganyatam. Adhiganyatam is more vividly. Describe this transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Please do that. So this was the verse that we had last time. Therefore, describe the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, more vividly. And that is the connect between last verse and this verse, where this time it is mentioned, Idam hi pumsah yad uttama shloka gunanuvarnana. Actually, all the advancement of knowledge should culminate in glorification of the Lord who is described in choicest poetry. Let's deep dive into the purport, the time that we have together, which is always against us. First thing is the concept of glorification, right? You see, the whole world is enamored by this concept of glorification. We glorify film personalities, we glorify politicians, we glorify entrepreneurs, successful people. Forget about all these people who are not really related to us. Parents glorify their children. Prabhupada says somewhere, even if a child is born with one eye, mother out of her love, not just mother, when parents out of their love, they call Kamala Lochana. They glorify the children. Even if the child has a lot of faults, in the eyes of the parents, always a small act of the children is glorified. Forget about the children. We want to glorify our own selves. We want to know how many people are liking us, how many people are commenting on our opinions, how many people really come and say, oh, you are so nice. That gives so much of pleasure, joy. Actually, this is coming because instead of knowing where the glorification should be used, unfortunately, we use it in our own mundane world, in our own lives, with our own known people, for ourselves. We want this glorification. We hanker for this glorification. If you see the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, if you take any purport of Srila Prabhupada, you really cannot miss how wonderfully Prabhupada glorifies the Supreme Lord. It is not his personal opinion. It is the conclusion. It is the niryasa. It is the absolute conclusion of the Vedic literatures that the Lord has to be glorified. Who is the Lord? My God, who is he? I mean, we think we should be glorified. People should glorify. People should know us. We should become popular. Our glory should spread. Who are we? Even if we have some role models like sports persons, some politicians, their glories are such limited. Sometime back, Sachin Tendulkar used to be a favorite icon of people. Now he's gone. There is Virat Kohli or Roger Federer, for that matter. The sportsman that I used to call. Now he's is towards the end of his career. Somebody else comes, replaces, and then it goes on. The Supreme Lord, he is Uttama Shloka. He is described in choicest poetry by all great scholars and devotees. And I'll just give you some examples. If there is a chance given, I just can go on. But there are so many wonderful descriptions of the Lord in the pages of Bhagavatam. And just hearing them, just knowing about them can give us so much transcendental joy and pleasure. First thing here, when the Lord appears in the city of Dwarka, after he being present there in Hastinapur for a quite long time, look at the anxiety. Look at the way the people are, welcoming him. They were eagerly anticipating the Lord's arrival with all emotions, with all their feelings. Not that, okay, I know, okay, Krishna is coming. No, today I'll not go. I'll see afterwards when my job is over, this thing is over, I'll go and see. No, they're anxiously waiting. If you have a magnifying glass and magnify the way the Lord is appearing, such a beautiful description. And look at this picture of the Lord entering into Dwarka city and the verse which talks about it in Bhagavatam. Beautiful verse. Sita tapatra vyajanair upaskritah prasuna varshair avivarshitah patihi visangavasa vanamalaya babau ghano yatharko dupachapa vaidyutaihi. Somebody is again not on mute. Sorry. So this is a verse which is so wonderful. And just look at this verse in the description which Prabhupada has given. Sitata patra vyajanair upaskritaha. Atapatra is an umbrella. Sita atapatra vyajanair. Atapatra, there is a umbrella which is being carried to protect the Lord from the sunshine, from the heat. Sita atapatra vyajanair. Vyajana is a fan. You can see that there are people who are fanning. Sita atapatra vyajanair upaskritaha. And they are fanning the Lord. It is a white fan and they're fanning. Prasuna varshair avivarshitaha patihi. If you look down in this picture, look at my cursor on the road. Prasuna varshair. Prasuna is actually flowers. There is a shower of flowers when the Lord is coming. Prasuna varshair avivarshitaha patihi. Patha pati. Pati is the road. The road in which the Lord is walking is showered by this prasuna varshair, by this flowers. And Visangavasa vanamalaya babhahu. Visangavasa. Look at the Lord. Transcendental Lord wearing this yellow garment. Visangavasa. Visanga is yellow garment. Visangavasa. What else? Vanamala. Look at the Vanamala, which is dazzling in the Lord's neck. Beautiful he looks with this. Visangavasa vanamalaya babhu. Ghana. Yatha arka. Dupa chapa vaidyutaihi. There are 4 words which are used. Ghana yatha arka. Actually, the Lord is appearing. There is a fan which is going on. There's people who are fanning. There is an umbrella on top of his head. And he's wearing this yellow garment, Pisangavasa. And then there is Vanamali. He's wearing this beautiful garland, Vanamali. That's why the Lord, another name is Vanamali. And Yatha Arka. Arka is sun. Dupa. Dupa is moon. Arka Dupa Chapa. Chapa is a rainbow. Vaidutaihi. Vaidutaihi is this lightning. So the scene in which the Lord is appearing it is appearing as if there is simultaneously sun which is present, there is moon which is present, there is rainbow which is present, and there is lightning. I mean, think of this. Ever in our life have we seen sun, moon, rain, rainbow, lightning together? As the Lord passed along the public road of Dwarka, his head was protected from the sunshine by a white umbrella. White feathered fans moved in semicircles, and showers of flowers fell upon the road. His yellow garments and garlands of flowers made it appear as if a dark cloud were surrounded simultaneously by sun, moon, lightning, and rainbows. Prabhupada in the purport actually beautifully explains that since the Supreme Lord is beyond all this material, beauties, material comparisons, he is the supreme absolute truth. All the contradictions can simultaneously exist in him. Sun can be there, moon can be there. Rainbow, yes, rainbow is also, of course, possible. Lightning, yes, of course. It's all possible because it's the Supreme Lord himself. Sita tapatra vyajane rupaspratah rasuna varshe ravivashitah pathi visanga vasa vanamalaya babho ghano yatharka dupa chapa vaidite. Read the purport to understand which is what. How the Lord is dark cloud. And what is the Pisanga Vasa, yellow garment, what does it represent? Which is the sun? Which is the moon? Which is the electricity? Which is the lightning? I'm sorry, and which is the rainbow? See that. Read from the purport. Prabhupada explains each of this. I don't want to get into this. See the beautiful description of the Lord. I want to talk about another one. This is Lord Shiva, the great personality whom so many people consider as the Supreme Lord. Followers, a lot of followers. Lord Shiva in Bhagavatam, in 4th canto, giving instructions to his followers, and he's talking about the beauty of the Supreme Lord. And what beautiful verse is this? This is called Rudra Gita. These are 2 verses, and what Lord Shiva is telling, Shnigdha Pravriddha Ghanashyamam Sarva Saundarya Sangraham Charu Ayata Chaturbahu Sujata Ruchirananam Padma Kosha Palasaksham Sundara Bhru Sunasikam Sudvijam Su Kapolasayam Samakarna Vibhushanam. Snigdha, glistening, Prabhupada translates the word-to-word meaning. Snigdha, Pravriddha Ghanashyamam. How is the form of the Lord? Pravriddha Ghanashyamam. In the rainy days, when the sky is covered with the fresh monsoon dark clouds, and it is glistening. Snigdha Pravriddha Ghanashyamam Sarva Saundarya Sangraham. Actually, I love this poetic expression of Bhagavatam. Sarva Saundarya Sangraham. All of us, we look for material beauties. Various things in this material world attract us. But the Lord is the reservoir or the storehouse of all the beauties. Sarva Saundarya Sangraham. He is the reservoir of all the beauties. Charu Ayata Chaturbahu. Charu Ayata, beautiful form the Lord has. And how is it? This is he's remembering the Lord in his 400 forms. So Charu Ayata Chaturbahu, he's got 4 hands. Sujata is again another expression which says extremely beautiful, the Lord's form and his body. Sujata Ruchira Ananam. Ruchira is very pleasing. His face, look at the face of the Lord. It's so pleasing. Ruchira Ananam. Padma Kosha Palasaksham, and his eyes, Padma Kosha Palasa, the petals of lotus, Padma Kosha Palasaksham. His eyes are like the lotus petals. Sundara Bhru, what a beautiful eyebrow the Lord has. Sunasikam, beautiful nose. Sudvijam, Su Kapola Ashayam. Kapola is the forehead. Ashayam is the face. Samakarna Vibhushanam, and his ears are also beautifully decorated with the earrings. Actually, the Lord's earrings also is glorified in Bhagavatam so wonderfully because it is so fortunate that it gets a chance to touch the cheek of the Lord, especially the Lord in the Vrindavan pastime. Samakarna Vibhushanam. Translation is, the Lord's beauty resembles a dark cloud during the rainy season. As the rainfall glistens, his bodily features also glisten. Indeed, he is the sum total of all beauty. Saundarya Sangraham. Sarva Saundarya Sangraham. The Lord has 4 arms, Chaturbahu, and an exquisitely beautiful face, Ruchirananam, with eyes like lotus petals, Padma Kosha Palasaksham, beautiful highly raised nose, Sunasikam, a mind-attracting smile, a beautiful forehead, Su Kapolasayam, equally beautiful and fully decorated ears, Samakarna Vibhushanam. These are the wonderful glorification of Lord. Every page, everywhere, if you see the devotees, how they, because that is why the Lord is called Uttama Shloka, with choicest poetry. One has to describe the Lord. What happens if somebody describes the beautiful form and the the beauties of the Lord, if it is described, what happens? This is a verse which comes. This is again another beautiful verse which I love in Bhagavatam. Hasam harer avanata khilaloka tibra sokashru sagar vishoshanam atyudaram sammohanaya rachitam nijamaya yasya bhrumandalam munikrite makaradhvajasya. This verse, if you see, when we glorify the Lord or when we see the Lord, what happens? Bhagavatam mentions Hasam Harir Avanata Khilaloka Tibra Sokasru Sagara Vishoshanam. This is one word which is used here. Akhila Loka Tibra Sokasru Sagara Vishoshanam. These are all, if you see, there is a hyphen. Hasam Harir. Look at the beautiful smile of the Lord. Unfortunately, we are busy in our life. It's so caught up. We don't even pay attention to this. But when you go to have darshan of the Lord, spend time. Spend time with the Lord who's so merciful, who's so compassionate. And yet we are so forgetful of the Lord. And here it is mentioned, Hasam Harer, the smile of the Lord. Hasam Harer, Avanata. Avanata is to bow down. When I bow down to the smiling face of the Lord, Avanata, Akhila Loka Tibra Sokashra Sagara Vishoshanam. What a poetic description of this. Look at our position in this material world. Akhila Loka Tivra Sokasru Sagara Vishoshanam. We are lamenting in this material world. What kind of lamentation? Tivra Soka. It's not some chota mota lamentation in life. Tivra Soka. And Ashru Sagara. It is, it's an ocean of our tears when things don't go right. When somebody doesn't speak well, when someone near and dear, we lose them. All kinds of miseries and anxieties in our material world, we hide them. Yet we go for material happiness, material pleasure, hopeful that we will be happy in our pursuits, in our endeavors, not giving it up and trying it, very determined. And what we experience, Tivra Soka, very strong lamentation, Ashru Sagara. But you see the last word, Akhila Loka, for all the people who are in this material world, who are going through this Tibra Shoka, Ashru Sagara Vishoshanam, the Lord actually dries up the smile of the Lord, dries up all this material, the ocean of miseries. Akhila Loka Tibra Sokasru Sagara Vishoshanam, Ati Udaram. And the Lord is so compassionate, his smile is so compassionate. Ati Udaram. Sammohanaya rachitam nijamaya yasya. Sammohanaya. Actually, it is enchanting, the Lord's beauty. Sammohanaya rachitam nijamaya yasya. Bhrumandalam munikrite makarat bhajasya. And then the next thing which is mentioned here is Bhrumandalam, the eyebrows of the Lord. Pay attention to the eyebrows of the Lord. There is a special significance of that. We don't do that. Maybe I don't know if you do this, but if you see Bhrumandalam, actually everyone in this material world, all of us, we are tormented by the Cupid. The attraction for opposite sex doesn't go. Very, very strong. Cupid's power is extremely strong. That is how the whole world is bewildered. The whole world is mesmerized by that. But if somebody wants to get out of that, then the instruction is focus on the eyebrows of the Lord. Nijamaya yasya bhru mandalam munikrate makaradhvajasya. Makaradhvajasya is the Cupid. The arrows of the Cupid, when it is shot, it is difficult to come out of it. But having, focusing on the smile of the Lord can, it can dry up all the ocean of miseries, and focusing on the eyebrows of the Lord, Bhrumandalam, one can get rid of this attraction for opposite sex. A yogi should similarly meditate on the most benevolent smile of Lord Sri Hari, a smile which for all those who bow to him dries away the ocean of tears caused by intense grief. The yogi should also meditate on the Lord's arched eyebrows, which are manifested by his internal potency, Nijamaya Yasya, Rachitam Nijamaya Yasya, which are manifested by his internal potency in order to charm the sex god for the good of the sages. I can go on talking about this, but these are just 2-3 examples of how beautiful, how nicely the Lord is glorified and described in Bhagavatam, and how these are done by different personalities who are also transcendental. Let's get back to our purport. This is the final, this is what Bhagavatam is telling, or this verse is telling, that Uttama Shloka Gunana Varnanam, it should culminate all the pursuit of our knowledge, the advancement of knowledge should conclude, should end with this glorification of the transcendental personality of Godhead, who's glorified in Joyce's poetry. Let's see this aspect of the verse, which says purpose of advancement of knowledge. This is a very key thing in this entire purport, which Prabhupada has explained so beautifully, as I was telling. I want you to know about one conversation. And this conversation actually happened in Los Angeles in the year 1973. This conversation is between a scientist, and the scientist's name is Gregory Benford. He's an associate professor of physics at the University of California at Irvine. And he visited in the Garden of Los Angeles in the Krishna Center. Anybody can guess where is this mentioned? Okay, forget it. So I'll tell you where is it mentioned. You can look at this. This is a wonderful conversation. See, this is a scientist who's coming. The first time he's coming to meet Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles. And the conversation is going to happen, and how Prabhupada brings him the need and the necessity of Krishna consciousness, and how all the culmination of knowledge should happen in the glorification of the Lord. Very interesting. Prabhupada, being a genius, sometimes what he does is he puts the other person, before even he puts forward his argument, into a corner. So when this person comes to Prabhupada, the first thing Prabhupada asks, so what is the current scientific knowledge about the spirit soul? This is the first question. He's just come, he's meeting Prabhupada. Imagine he's a big scientist. He's not some ordinary person like you and me. And he's coming with some puffed up knowledge. I have got so much achievements, this thing, that thing, and he's coming. The first thing Prabhupada is asking, so what is the current scientific knowledge about the spirit soul? This person is unprepared. Knowledge about the spirit soul, he was not expecting this. So Dr. Benford, he responds, we have virtually no scientific knowledge about the soul. So he said, we don't have any knowledge. You see how he has been put into a back foot, the first question itself. Then Prabhupada is asking, so therefore you have actually made no advancement in scientific knowledge. Where is the question of advancement? Because you don't know about soul. So then this person, Dr. Benford, well, scientific knowledge is a different class of knowledge. These are all very strong, good arguments. It's a hardcore materialist whose pursuit of life is for this materialistic knowledge and having this conversation, and how beautifully Prabhupada brings him to what exactly is the purpose of life and what is the goal of this pursuit of knowledge. So he said, well, scientific knowledge is a different class of knowledge. Immediately Prabhupada responds, perhaps, yes, maybe. There are so many departments of knowledge: the medical study of the body, the psychological study of the mind, and ultimately spiritual transcendental knowledge. You see, this is how Prabhupada is building. He's telling the scientific knowledge is a different class of knowledge. Prabhupada said, yes, perhaps, you're right. There are so many departments of knowledge. Somebody can say, I'm doing a medical study of the body, psychology of the study of the mind, ultimately spiritual and transcendental knowledge. What Prabhupada is telling is, the body and mind are simply the coverings of the spirit soul, just as shirt and coat are coverings of your body. If you simply take care of the shirt, now this is not the one. I wanted to tell, okay, we don't say that the scientific knowledge is useless. Mechanics, electronics, this is also knowledge. But different departments of knowledge differ in their comparative importance. Pay attention to this word, comparative importance. So basically this professor, the scientist, he's telling, I think there is no category of knowledge that is useless. Like some people argue in this material world. What is wrong? I'm doing this. I'm only learning this. I'm trying this. And he's telling there is no category of knowledge which is useless. And how Prabhupada is defending. We don't say that the scientific knowledge is useless. mechanics, electronics. This is also knowledge, but different departments of knowledge, different in their comparative importance. For example, and Prabhupada gives example, if someone wants to cook nicely, this is also a science. There are many different departments of knowledge, but the central point is Atma Gyan, self-knowledge, the knowledge of the soul. This is the central point. Okay, you want to cook, it's all fine. You can learn that. This is also science. The central point is Atma Gyan. There is a comparative importance. And it's a long conversation. If you don't know where I'm talking it from, this is from a book called Journey of Self-Discovery. Read this conversation. Beautifully, Prabhupada builds up these arguments, how we can convince a person who doesn't know anything about spirituality, what is the existence of spirit soul? Who is the Supreme Lord? And there's one point where there are many interesting many interesting points which are brought by this Benford, Dr. Benford. One place where he's telling that undoubtedly, you are aware that there are a few people, both in Eastern and Western society, who feel it a bit more intellectually justifiable to be completely agnostic about matters of theology. Actually, he was not at all, a theist. He was agnostic. They feel more or less that if God had wanted us to know something more about him, then he would have made it more easily apprehendable. They don't believe in God, Prabhupada is asking him. Dr. Benford, I don't not believe in God. I'm just not forming an opinion until I have some evidence. So another thing that people ask, where is the evidence that the Lord exists? So this kind of question, and he's not telling that, I'm not totally not convinced that the Lord is not there, but I need some evidence as proof that the Lord exists. And so Prabhupada's argument, but do you think that there is a God or not? So this physicist, he's telling, I have a suspicion that there may be, but it is unverified. Then Prabhupada, but you think sometimes that there may be God. Do you not? Dr. Benford, yes. So you see how Prabhupada is catching the small little points. So he is telling, I have a suspicion that there may be, but it is unverified. Suspicion means, so that means sometimes you think that there may be God. Do you not? And he says, yes. So you are in doubt, suspicion, you are not certain, but your inclination is that you think there is God. Is it not? So your knowledge being imperfect, you are in doubt. That's all. Otherwise, you are inclined to think of God. But because you are a scientific man, unless you perceive it scientifically, you do not accept. That is your position. But from your side, you believe in God. Dr. Benford, he says, sometimes. Yes, sometimes or all times. It doesn't matter. Now, Prabhupada has brought him to this conclusion that the Lord exists. Okay, the sometimes or all times, it doesn't matter. That is the position of everyone. As long as one is in the human form of life, he has a dormant consciousness of God. See how an atheist, how a person whose life is dedicated to pursuit of knowledge gets convinced with Prabhupada, with this small conversation with Prabhupada, because he is talking from the spiritual platform with utter conviction. And that conviction, it shook the person. And this is one aspect. So the first thing that I spoke about is the importance of comparative knowledge. The second thing, that how Prabhupada is bringing him to the conclusion that there is Lord which is existing. He may sometimes feel it, he may sometimes not feel it, and he says that this is dormant in your heart. Everybody in the human form of life, this is dormant. And by proper training, by culture of knowledge, this can be expounded. Very interestingly, there is another thing which happens in this, is that this person argues with Prabhupada that you always talk about knowledge which there should be some utility of that knowledge. So that is why you're talking about comparative importance. But there could be some pursuit of knowledge which is simply meant for joy. I'm just doing this because this is giving me joy. And he gives an example. He points out in the garden of Los Angeles, if you see where Prabhupada sits, and the devotees sit in front of them, there are some grass which was growing. There was a pointing to the grass. This professor, he says that, the sheer joy of discovering how nature works. So for example, now we think that we understand matter like this, and he points to the grass. We think that we know from experiments, theory, and analysis that it is made up of particles that we cannot see, and we can analyze the properties of it through experiment. We know that it is made up of molecules. We understand some of the forces that hold it together. And this is the first time we knew this. We didn't know it before. So interestingly, so this is he's bringing. So I'm just pursuing a knowledge for pleasure. And how Prabhupada is countering this. Prabhupada is saying, what is the benefit? Even if you knew every particle of this grass, what would be the benefit? The grass is growing. It will grow with or without your knowledge. Is it like if you don't have the knowledge, the grass will not grow? It will grow. You may know it or you may not know it, but it will not make any difference. Anything you like, you may study from a material analytical point of view. Any nonsense thing you take, you can study and compile a voluminous book, but what will be the use of it? So then this professor is telling, I seem to view the world as the sum of its component parts. Then Prabhupada, how he refutes this. Suppose I take this grass. I can write volumes of grass. I can write volumes of books when it came into existence, when it died, what the fibers are, what the molecules are. In so many ways, I can describe this insignificant foliage. What is the use of it? So Benford, this professor, is telling, if it has no use, why did God put it there? Isn't it worthwhile studying? This is where Prabhupada catches him again. Our point is that you would rather study the insignificant grass than the God who has created everything. If you could understand him, the Lord who has created, then automatically you would understand the grass. But you want to separate his grass from him, to study it separately. In this way, you can compile volumes and volumes on the subject. But why waste your intelligence in that way? This is what the point of this verse is. Buddhi, the culmination of advancement of knowledge, the abhyuchyata arthaha, infallible purpose of that is to come to understand that there is a creator, there is a Lord behind that, and glorify the Lord, understand his position, understand your position. The branch of a tree is beautiful as long as it is attached to the main trunk. And this goes on and so on and so forth. Actually, there's a beautiful conversation. He, in the midst of conversation, he also brings up the topic of going to moon. What do you think about moon landing? Moon landing is simply a waste of time, Prabhupada says like this. It's just waste. What you'll do going to moon? You'll go and sleep there. So as if, we have wasted this entire material earth by eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, if Prabhupada had to say further. And now you're trying to go to moon. There's nothing you're finding there. What you'll do? You'll go and eat and sleep and mate and defend. That's all it is. That's how Prabhupada dresses him off. Very, very interesting conversation. And talks about what is the purpose of advancement of knowledge. Let's move on. I have got, okay. I wanted to tell you about this, the history of science. And because the scientific communities, at present at least, are so atheistic, they kind of inspire for a person, a common man, to become atheistic, which was not the case earlier. The earlier scientists were all theists. And the classic example of this is, which we all have heard about, the story of Newton, who was a theist. And once, when he entered into his lab, he saw this, his atheistic friend was accompanying him. And the atheistic friend saw that on the table, there is a beautiful solar model with all crankshafts and different planets and different axes, and they're all rotating in different axes in orbits without colliding with each other. And he said, how did this happen? He said, just by chance, it's all lying here, these balls and everything. And one day I just locked the door and went, and then all of a sudden they came and they got assembled, and then they're rotating. He said, come on, Newton, I'm serious. I want to know this. How did this happen? So Newton said, I'm damn serious. I'm not joking with you. This is how it happened. By chance, all these balls, these metals which were lying in their respective places, they came and they started rotating. The point which Newton was trying to draw or drive was that, this entire huge, gigantic universe with so many big masses of planets which are rotating, we consider that happening by chance. We don't say that there is a creator. This small solar model, we are not able to accept that it is done by chance, but we are ready to accept that this complicated universe, which is working in so perfect way, with all this huge, gigantic masses running in there, rotating in their respective orbits without colliding, has happened by chance. Anyway, I also want to bring you to your notice about this one interesting thing, which all of you might not know about it. This is called the fine-tuning of the universe. If you search for this, you'll actually find it. The scientists, the scientific community, instead of acknowledging the presence of the Supreme Lord, talk about something called the universe is fine-tuned. It's a very beautiful concept. Actually, if you see this, it actually says it proves the existence of Lord. They give the example of gravitational constant. If the gravitational constant, had it been whatever that number is, had it been different, not by 0.01%, not by 0.001%, if it is different by 10 to the power 60, so 1 by 10 to the power 60, if it would have been different by that much number, then this universe would have not been possible, because the gravitational constant is holding everything. If it would have been more, then it would have collided, or it would have been less, then it would have been just, the shape and the form is not possible. 10 to the power 60. Then the scientists also talk about a cosmological constant. If the cosmological constant is different by 10 to the power 200, then this, life in this cosmos is not possible. 10 to the power 200. Our bodies have got 10 to the power 30 cells, trillion cells, 10 to the power 200. Imagine, and we say that these are all happening by chance. By chance, there is one universe which came from some nowhere, from Big Bang, and then things are going on, everything is happening. Isn't it stupidity? How is it by chance all these things are happening? And this is what the scientists say, the fine-tuned universe. Okay, I have things to share. Actually, the earlier scientists, if you take any of them, Pascal, Copernicus, all of them, they were all theists. And they were saying it is a sacred duty of the scientists. It is the scientific observations or the scientific discoveries that we are doing is a duty to the Lord. It's a sacred duty to the Lord. And there is a definition of atheism. I think it is given by one of the scientists. I just couldn't find it. Who is it? They give a definition of atheism. It's a philosophy of insufficient depth. Someone who's saying that there is no Lord is actually a philosophy of insufficient depth. They've not gone into the deeper aspects of understanding this cosmology, this science, this creation, this beautiful thing which is all around us. They've not gone deeper into this. It's called a philosophy of insufficient depth. Now, coming back to the purport, the first paragraph again, and hitting the nail on the cover, because we get carried away and we get drifted. So again, coming back to what the purport is telling, the first paragraph itself, human intellect is developed for advancement of learning in art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, economics, politics, etc. By culture of such knowledge, the human society can attain perfection of life. This perfection of life culminates in the realization of the Supreme Being, Vishnu. See, culture of knowledge is required. Culture of knowledge is required for perfection of life. And Prabhupada, the first line he's telling, human intellect is developed for advancement of learning. We all want to learn. Whatever it is our pursuit, art, science, philosophy, technology, physics, chemistry, whatever it is, we want to learn. It is human intellect is developed for that. And by culture of such knowledge, the human society can attain perfection of life. And this perfection of life culminates in the realization of the Supreme Being, Vishnu. This is the culmination. This is the final episode. This is the final thing. It culminates in that. The Shruti therefore directs that those who are actually advanced in learning should aspire for the service of Lord Vishnu. Those who are advanced, actually advanced in learning, should aspire for the service of Lord Vishnu. This is what is our real position. This is what is our constitutional position, to render service to the Lord. Unfortunately, and the unfortunate situation is beautifully described by Prabhupada in these few lines. So remember this, Shruti therefore directs that those who are actually advanced in learning should aspire for the service of Lord Vishnu. And Prabhupada writes, unfortunately. And this is the unfortunate situation for all of us, not for anybody else. Unfortunately, persons who are enamored by the external beauty of Vishnu Maya do not understand the culmination of perfection or self-realization depends on Vishnu. Culmination, as I said, is the final thing. So those who are enamored by the external beauty of Vishnu Maya, they do not understand that the culmination of perfection or self-realization depends on Vishnu. Vishnu Maya means sense enjoyment, which is transient and miserable. Those who are entrapped by Vishnu Maya utilize advancement of knowledge for sense enjoyment. They are enamored, they are entrapped by Vishnu Maya. They are not able to come to the culmination of this knowledge. They see that, this is Vishnu. They're enamored and entrapped, and that's why they're, they think that the utilization, the advancement of knowledge is for sense enjoyment. Sri Narada Muni has explained that all paraphernalia of the cosmic universe is but an emanation from the Lord out of his different energies, because the Lord has set in motion by his inconceivable energy the actions and reactions of the created manifestation. They have come to be out of his energy, they rest on his energy, and after annihilation, they merge into him. Nothing is therefore different from him, but at the same time, the Lord is always different from them. This verse, actually, we have already discussed. If you have forgotten where this verse is, look at the verse number 1.5.20. Idam hi viswam bhagavan ivetaro yat yato jagat sthana nirodha sambhava tadhi swayam veda bhavams tathapite adesha matram bhavata pradarshitam. This verse, exactly the translation of that is Prabhupada is putting, because Narada Muni has already explained this, that all this external energy, all paraphernalia of the cosmic universe is but an emanation from the Lord out of his different energies, because the Lord is set into motion. Now, so I spoke about this Vishnu Maya, how people who are, unfortunately, those people who are enamored by this, Vishnu Maya means sense enjoyment, and this is transient and miserable. And those who are entrapped by Vishnu Maya utilize advancement of knowledge for sense enjoyment. I want again you to think about this child and the word rebel. Actually, all of us are rebellious. The Lord, out of his Udara, very compassionately, he has given this formula, he has given this process, he has explained it very kindly for our benefit. If we take up to this process, we can go back to him, eternally remain with him, free from the miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease, free from the miseries of Adhyatmik, Adidhaivik, Adi Bhautik, but we are rebellious. We don't want to listen. We want to be enamored by the external energy of the Lord. There is a beautiful song by it is Narottam Das Thakur. Yeah, it is Narottam Das Thakur, where he says, we all know this song, but it's so appropriate for all of us in this position. Hari Hari Bipale Janama Gonaine. Manusya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Na Bhajya Jania Sunya Bisakhain. Actually, this song has 4 stanzas only. The essence of the song is drink nectar, not poison. Hari Hari Bifale Janama Gonainu. Manusya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Na Bhajya Jania Sunya Bisakhainu. Oh Lord Hari, I have spent my life uselessly, having obtained a human birth and having not worshipped Radha and Krishna. I have knowingly drunk poison. Imagine two glasses are there. One has got nectar, one has got poison, and the poison is written boldly. Poison, whatever, boldly this. And poison, it is written, potassium cyanide. We are all scared of that, right? So it's written there. But we go and drink that. Instead of taking what we are missing the nectar. What we are taking, Janiya, Sunya, Biswakain. Human birth should be used for serving Radha Krishna. Actually, Narottam Das Thakur, out of his humility, sings to Hari that I have simply spoiled. This is not Narottam Das Thakur who has spoiled, it's we. Simply, we have spoiled this human form of life by not caring to worship Radha and Krishna. There are 2 kinds of knowledge. Janya, knowledge which is concluded by experimentation, and Sunya, knowledge obtained by hearing from the authoritative source. And Narottam Das Thakur is singing that by both ways, Janya and Sunya, by experiment or by Sunya, by obtained by hearing. By both ways, I know that this human form of life is meant for engaging in the loving service of Radha and Krishna, but I didn't do that. And he compares this with consuming poison knowingly. Janya Sunya Vishakhain. That's committing a suicide. Like Bhagavatam also mentions, Nibritta Tarshay Rupagiyamana. Bhavo Swadha Chotra Manobhirama. Ka Uttama Shoka Gunanvadat Uman Virajeta Vina Pashukna. This is the verse which is there in the beginning of Krishna book, which Prabhupada writes. Nivritta Tarshay Rupagiyamana. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the Parampara system. It is conveyed from the spiritual master to disciple. This is the glorification of the Supreme Lord. It is performed in the parampara system. The Guru transmits. He conveys this to his disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. They are no more interested. It is relished by those. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? I can go on, actually. This verse is so wonderful. But maybe I'll just stop and see if you have any questions. Okay, before I conclude, I just want to, I'll just finish this. Sorry. In the second paragraph, sorry, I got muted for some reason. The second paragraph, Prabhupada is telling, when advancement of knowledge is applied in the service of the Lord, the whole process becomes absolute. Personality of Godhead and his transcendental name, fame, glory, etc. are all non-different from him. Therefore, all the sages and the devotees of the Lord have recommended that the subject matter of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, and all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. Art, literature, poetry, painting, etc. may be used in glorifying the Lord. Actually, all these achievements, all the skills that we have are nothing but zeros. Zero, and then we can add on, go on adding. Prabhupada says 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 has no value if you keep on adding zeros. But when you add that one before that, it has tremendous meaning, significance. So when we add the Lord, when we engage all the facilities, the skills, the abilities that we have in the service of the Lord, all the sages and the devotees of the Lord have recommended that the subject matter of art, science, philosophy, physics, chemistry, psychology, and all other branches of knowledge should be wholly and solely applied in the service of the Lord. Philosophy and science should be engaged to establish the glory of the Lord. Advanced people are eager to understand the absolute truth through the medium of science, and therefore a great scientist should endeavor to prove the existence of the Lord on a scientific basis. So, and then speculation should be okay. And then he's saying in the Bhagavad Gita also the same is affirmed. All knowledge not engaged in service of the Lord is but nescience. Real utilization of advanced knowledge is to establish the glories of the Lord. And that is the real import. Scientific knowledge engaged in the service of the Lord and all similar activities are all factually Hari Kirtan and glorification of the Lord. So, Prabhus and Matajis, if you understand the essence of this verse, which says all our abilities, all our skills, everything can be used for Krishna's service, establishing his position. That is why, ISKCON Bangalore group of devotees, they have this ambition to have some big projects like, let's say, a theme park. A theme park can explain the position of the Lord to laymen who have no concept, no idea of understanding who Lord is. And it can engage all kinds of people. Somebody who's an architect, somebody who's an engineer, somebody who's a painter, somebody who's a sculptor, somebody who's whatever skills he has can be used for Krishna's service. That is the real goal of our life. That is where our life will be successful. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments. Any question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
So, Prabhu, the whole point here is invention or whatever the scientist or anybody is spending time to invent something or those things. It should be, the purpose should be for serving the Lord, not like for, personal sense enjoyments or other things.
Okay, so is it a comment or a question or clarification? What is it?
Clarification. So because so many things we are using, right, which were invented by, so for our comforts or whatever it is, so many things we have. So for example, if you take even the internet, which now, we are able to have these sessions. So many such things. So is it like conclusion that whatever the, advancements or inventions, that which one should keep in mind so that we can use those things for serving the Lord?
You see, the answer is very simple, which I told during the class. The answer which Prabhupada is writing in the purport is there is the external energy of the Lord called Vishnu Maya. And there is the real Lord Vishnu. Right? So the culmination of advancement of knowledge the culmination, this is the final thing, should end. I mean, this is how the advancement of the purpose of advancement of knowledge should be to engage in devotional service of the Lord. If someone is just stuck in that I have done something, some invention, whatever you're saying, internet or whatever, smartphone, whatever we have used, this will make my life comfortable. This is this pursuit, or if I do something better, my life will become more comfortable, is an illusion. This is called Vishnu Maya. The real purpose of life, as we said, is Janya Sunya Bisakhaino. I mean, knowingly and Janya and Sunya, we are drinking poison, thinking that this is what it is. Unfortunately, this is not the truth. This is not the reality. The reality is to come to this understanding. Ultimately, we are part and parcel of the Lord. We are spirit soul, have got nothing to do with this body, and we are supposed to be engaged in devotional service of the Lord. That's what it is. So as far as we are concerned, any technology that we are we can use it for Krishna service is fine. We are not averse to scientific advancement. We are not averse to what the scientists are telling. But as Prabhupada is telling, there is a comparative importance between this knowledge. You can make advancement in mechanics, electronics, physics, psychology, all these things, but you are missing the central point, which is self-realization. So if all this advancement of science, technology, and whatever is coming can help us understand Krishna, great. The scientists, the people who are engaged in these pursuits, if they can use that technology or use that skills for glorifying the Lord, for establishing his positions, great. Otherwise, we are just enamored by the external energy. Is that fine?
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? Actually, our position is that rebellious child. We don't want to take to this path seriously, even though we are devotees. We have heard this Janya and Sunya. We know this, we have heard this, but we still want to go to drink poison. We justify our drinking poison in various ways, saying that things have changed. My children are not supporting. They have come up with new ideas which are telling that no, we should enjoy. There are ways that we can do. We justify. Our neighbors have influenced us. Our colleagues, our society is influencing us. Actually, these are all illusions. Look at the position of Sukadev Goswami. Nothing, just no clothes even. But he's the transcendentalist from whom everybody is willing to listen. So the real position of ours is we are just trapped in this temporary coverings. We are really spirit, soul, and part and parcel of the Lord. And when we engage in that service, there is a satisfaction which is permanent. It's just all satisfying. Instead of that, all these pursuits are miserable and temporary, transient and miserable. That's what Prabhupada writes in the purport. Any other question? No other question, then we will stop here. I have come closer to the time zone. I'm right now in the central time zone, 1 hour behind you. I'm in Mexico City. Hopefully I'll come quickly. be in the same time zone sometime. So this such wonderful descriptions of Bhagavatam. Actually, our goal of life should be how we can come together and discuss, understand this philosophy, get convinced about this ourselves first. If we ourselves are not convinced, if we are confronted with someone who is very hardcore materialist, we can't share this knowledge. We can't convince him. And knowing this knowledge is so joyful, so blissful, and so beautifully Prabhupada has explained. Why not spend time? Why not be serious? Why not be attentive and understand and see it from different angles and try to acquire this and share this? Is what is our real goal of life. Actually, the goal of life should only be understanding this Bhagavatam, hearing that verse which says, Ayur Harati Vaipumsan. Right? Every day when the sun rises and the sun sets, one day of our life is gone. Whether you like it or not, it happens. In my 2 months stay in Bangalore ashram, I saw 2 devotees quitting their body. Very young, not some old, dilapidated, not able to walk, nothing of that sort. Very, very young people. They died. So Ayur Harati Vaipumsam Udayan Astan Chayana. So it is going. But here, Uttama Shloka Vartaya, a person who is engaging his time, simply if you just engage your time in hearing, understanding, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, he's freed from this. But the simple thing is very complicated in our life because we don't have faith, we don't have conviction, and we don't do that properly. We complicate our life in so many ways by expanding our needs and necessities instead of minimizing them and just having time for focusing on this. We have expanded. And when we have expanded and complicated things, we're not focusing on this. And then we're saying, what to do now, bro? This is all miserable world, material life, all these things. I'm not getting conviction. Because I'm not spending time in that. I am not investing time in this. This is what is the recommendation of all the scriptures. When we do that, when we come together with that enthusiasm to understand, to help each other, to share this knowledge, the life is, there is a different vibration altogether. Otherwise, this materialist pursuits will only frustrate us. The endeavor has no this thing, and we'll continue to be disappointed in life. Anyway, we'll stop here. Jai Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Hari. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.